Welcome to this Authentic Authoring Crash Course. So your teacher has asked you to create a presentation, a video, a podcast, or another digital product that reflects what you have learned. Great! So you begin your quest for resources and tools that will help you create your digital product. You basically have two ways to go about it. One is to create that product entirely yourself from scratch, and the other one is to find materials that other people have created and use them responsibly. For this course, we will mainly concentrate on this second option. Neither is better than the other, it's just a matter of what's more convenient for you and what fits better into your project. However, if you decide to use other people's creations, you can find three scenarios. The first one has to do with running into copyrighted material. The second one has to do with material with Creative Commons licenses. And the third one has to do with public domain material. We will briefly discuss these three options. Let's begin with copyrighted material. I'm going to give you an example, and let's say that Nina has to go on a countryside trip to take pictures for her science project. So she takes a lot of pictures of a ladybug, and then she uploads these pictures to her blog. Great. So now there's another person that we're going to call him John, and John is interested in using Nina's pictures because he needs them for one of his projects also. Because John notices that it has a copyright license, he knows that he has to contact Nina to ask for permission to use that particular picture. That's the way copyright works. However, this poses an interesting question. Does this mean that I can't use any copyrighted material at all? Not exactly. Let me talk to you about fair use. Fair use is the right of the public to make reasonable use of copyrighted material in special circumstances without the copyright owner's permission. So, what are those special circumstances? For instance, let's talk about the first one. When you research, when you teach, when you comment, or when you criticize other people's work, this could be considered as fair use. On the other hand, the character and the use that you give to this new creation, whether it's for commercial purposes or for non-commercial purposes, also is something that needs to be considered. On the other hand, you have to ask this question: does it affect the creator's potential revenue? And finally, you also have to consider the amount used compared to the whole. Also, an important aspect to consider is how substantial that part of the content is. As a rule of thumb, the less you use, the more likely it will be okay. That being said, the safest way to play it is to consistently look for and use material with Creative Commons licenses or public domain. If we get into the habit of using this kind of resources, we will definitely avoid having to deal with copyright or fair use issues. So let's talk about Creative Commons licenses. Let's go back to Nina's example, and she has this picture of the ladybug. It used to have a copyright license. However, she decides that she wants to allow other people to use this picture in different ways. So instead of doing a copyright license, she does a Creative Commons license on that picture. So now she runs into a wide range of possibilities which are actually matched with the different Creative Commons licenses. And we're going to take a look at each one of these very briefly. Let's see the first one, and whenever you run into this little icon, there's a lot of information that is given to you. For instance, this is telling you that this is a Creative Commons license, and in addition, it's asking for attribution. By the way, this is the most open license because it's the less restrictive one. So what does this mean? This Creative Commons attribution license allows you to distribute, remix, tweak, or build upon your work and even use it commercially. The only important thing that you need to remember is that you need to give proper attribution to the creator of this work. So some keywords that you need to remember are giving credit, attribution, building upon, and commercial use. Moving on to the next kind of license, we have a Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license. So what does this mean? It basically means you have a Creative Commons license, you need to give attribution, and you need to share alike. This is exactly the same kind of license as the previous one, with the difference that whenever you tweak or modify the original work, you are obligated to use the same license. That means sharing alike. It needs to be licensed under the identical terms as the previous one. So what are some keywords to remember? Giving credit, identical terms, sharing alike. By the way, this is a license that Wikipedia uses. The next kind of license is a Creative Commons license, attribution, no derivatives. What does this mean? That my original work needs to remain unchanged. It needs to be considered as a whole, and of course, we need to give credit to it. So, important keywords to remember: unchanged, whole, no derivatives, no changes allowed. The fourth kind is the Creative Commons license, attribution, non-commercial. This is pretty straightforward, as it indicates that I can remix, tweak, build upon, modify the original work. However, I cannot use it for commercial purposes. So keywords to remember: non-commercial. However, the share alike is no longer part of this license. Moving on to the next one, the Creative Commons license, attribution, non-commercial, share alike. This is a more restrictive kind of license because it's not allowing me to use it commercially, and I still need to basically use it with the same identical terms as the original work. So what are some keywords? Non-commercial, credit, share alike. And finally, we move on to the last kind of license, and this is the most restrictive of all. This is the Creative Commons license, attribution, non-commercial, no derivatives. What does this mean? You can use or download this work as long as you give proper attribution, you don't use it commercially, or change anything from it. Keywords to remember: non-commercial, credit, can't change. Now comes the time when you have created your content and now you want to license it. I want to show you a very quick and easy to use tool that will allow you to streamline the process in the and this is the Creative Commons License Feature tool. Basically, it asks you a series of simple questions that you answer, and the system will automatically suggest the best license according to your preferences. You fill out some basic information about yourself and your work so that others may give proper attribution to your work. And finally, you'll be able to simply copy and paste some code onto your website or your blog. And people will know that you have a Creative Commons license now. On the other hand, if you are actually looking for resources, I want to show you an example here. Let's say that I'm interested in using this ladybug picture, and this is one of my favorite tools and sites for finding Creative Commons resources. This is Flickr, and I find this image that I'm interested in using, and I have important information here that I can use. This, for instance, is telling me that some rights are reserved, which basically means that I can use it without using it commercially and sharing alike. I also have information about the author so that I can give proper attribution. Finally, we move on to public domain. I strongly encourage all students to utilize this kind of materials as it is the most open one of all. So what is it anyway? Well, the public domain is a collection of all expressive works for which no one owns the copyright. Or, to look at it another way, it's the collection of works which everyone owns. A work is in the public domain if its copyright is over, or if its copyright never existed. Examples of these include and are not limited to music, lyrics, literature works, whatever you name it. An example of this is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This is a work for which the copyright is over now. And finally, works in the public domain may be used freely by anyone, for any purpose, without copyright permission from anyone, because no one owns exclusive rights in these works. So there you go. Now you're ready to begin creating content in a responsible way, and you have a little more information about the different copyright issues and licenses available to you. We hope you have enjoyed and learned this video. And by the way, this has been created with a Creative Commons license, attribution, non-commercial, no derivatives. Thanks for watching.